It took overtime here at the Q, and in the second round of the MAC tournament, Ball State took down Ohio 76-73, and right out of the gates, Ohio definitely did not look up to par. And Brad, what do you think was the reason for that?
Well, a lot of it had to do with they were taking bad shots. They didn't get into the paint. They weren't taking good shots. They were settling for a lot of contested 20-foot jumpers from the elbow by guys like Ivo Baltic, Ricardo Johnson, and TJ Hall, guys that don't get to see a lot of playing time. And on the defensive side of the ball, they gave up a lot of shots that they weren't really in their face. And John Gross stressed that in his post game, that Ball State was shooting well while they were hot in the first half, but Ohio didn't really keep the pressure up until late in the first half, where they made the run, and then they did carry it over into the second half and ended up taking the lead with about 11 minutes to go, but it just wasn't enough. They were up 9 with 2:40 to go, couldn't close.
Yeah, and the Cats had it tied at 22 with about 4 minutes left in the first half, but then Ball State pretty much just came out and kind of put them to sleep almost.
There were a lot of fast break transition points. Ohio was a little bit cautious. They weren't attacking the paint. They were settling for those outside jumpers and everything. That really led into Ball State getting some momentum, and Ohio really had to play catch up, and they were able to catch up. But then again, Ball State played catch up, and then once they took the lead again, that overtime period really settled it, with Ball State getting the 3-point victory.
Now let's talk about that second half a little bit. Ohio seemed to come out excited. They were ready to play, and they fought back. They got only their second lead of the game at 41-40. Talk about that comeback.
Absolutely. They really were getting point. Ivo Baltic is a sophomore. We can talk about Ivo Baltic. He's got 2 years left in this program. He's really stepped up his game in the last couple of years. Last couple of games, check that. He's stepped up his game. He's become a leader on this team that could really be a factor in replacing guys like Devon Washington down in the post, who's graduating after this season. But Ivo Baltic was playing well. They started getting back to the paint. DJ Cooper was passing the ball a little more. Cooper did not have a good shooting night, 5 of 19, but he did hit a few floaters when they had some momentum. He hit some shots that you and I have seen him hit throughout the entire season, that we knew what he could do. Nick Kellogg had a big and one. It's just really, the guys were hitting shots. They were starting to play better as a team. But again, it just wasn't, they didn't keep the foot on the gas. They kind of held back a little bit. They had a few shots at the end of the game, which Coach Gross also stressed in his post game, that didn't go down. A Baltic floater, a Cooper layup, a Devon missed a layup, so they had an and one free throw that they missed. So at the end of the game, they didn't keep their foot on the gas. They did back off a little bit, and Ball State, they just knew that their backs were against the wall, and ultimately at the end, Ball State came out on top.
Now Ohio led by 9 points 2 different times late in that second half, both at the 6.5-minute mark and the 3.5-minute mark. And basically from the 3.5-minute mark down, it seemed like there was definitely a lull in the game. And you look up and Ball State's within 3 points. A Chris Bond and one ties it up at 65. Game heads to overtime, and in OT, it all kind of went crazy, and Ball State really had the advantage for the entire time.
They did, and you just had that feeling, and I know you and I discussed this after the end of regulation, but when going into overtime, that we talked about when Ohio took the lead. The fans were in it, the momentum had definitely shifted, and then we went to overtime, and you could kind of sense that it was a little more timid. Ohio was not in the game the way that Ball State was, and Ball State made that late comeback, and you're right, that big and one at the end. They hit a 3 in transition. Ohio lost the ball trying to get on a fast break. A few bad offensive possessions, a few passes that Ohio threw away, and ultimately Ball State, when they saw the opportunities, they took advantage of them. They didn't waste possessions. They used all 35 seconds of the shot clock, and they made the most of their time with possession at the basketball.
And in the end, Ball State comes out on top 76-73 in overtime. For us here at the Q, he's Brad Zahar. I'm Tanner Smith. Ohio gets a lot of guys back next year. We'll have to see what they do.